Hey, welcome back! Do designers improvise more than they care to admit? Do designers invent, or are they artisans? Surely at some point you've heard the aphorism form follows function, right? This implies that the form of an object is dependent on the intended use. The key word here is intended. Intent and context plays a much larger role in the way things look than designers care to admit. This intent can be to differentiate a product based on a few different variables.
Let's take a look at 3 examples of how form is not driven by function and more driven by invention, context, and aesthetics. If you go to your local home improvement store, you'll certainly find a section for hammers. If you look at the selection of hammers, you'll likely find anywhere from 10 to 20 to 50 different hammer designs. These are based on brand, intended use, and features. If form truly followed function, you'd have a single hammer that could be used for all circumstances. If we go 3.3 million years back, the earliest forms of hammers were rocks that archaeologists call hammerstones. These were blunt instruments that we used to form other more brittle rocks into cutting and killing tools. Flash forward to 30,000 BC, and the general form factor for hammers hasn't really changed. The general anatomy of a hammer as we know it has a business end and a handle. If you segment out the 2 points of contact, the head and the handle, the things in between are where designers have begun to differentiate between the various types. This segmentation comes in the form of branding and intended function. Everything else begins to specialize into a specific use case, such as a sledgehammer with a very large striking end and a long handle, or a carpenter's hammer with a medium-sized handle and typically a claw on the end for extracting rogue nails. Another great example of this is coffee mugs, or just cups in general. Cups are a step up from cupping one's hand to transport usually liquid from one place to another. The pure function of a cup is to create a vessel to prevent typically the liquid state of matter from being compelled to spill by gravity. This vessel has high walls for reasonable capacity and either a diameter that is easy to grip or a small attached handle to avoid scalding the skin when transporting hot liquids. Again, if we look at this from a purely functional lens, all cups would look the same, have the perfect insulation to remove the need for a handle, and work in isolation from all the permutations out there. Well, why are there so many different cups? This comes back to intention and context. A measuring cup, for example, can technically be used to pour water into one's mouth, and a coffee mug can hold sugar. Branding, use, improvisation, as well as artistry allow us to have an infinitely broad selection of cups at our disposal. Go into your cupboard and count the various types of vessels that could be classified as cup. Form follows intent and context. Finally, our last example is one that is near and dear to my heart. Chairs. In 2010, I created a project where I designed 52 chairs. That's 1 chair a week for a year. This was to show how broad the solution to chair could be. Chairs have been around since at least 3100 BC, and initially were only around 10 inches off the ground. The base function of a chair is to provide a platform for a bipedal animal to rest the hindquarters upon, typically in an elevated position off the ground. If the chair were to be purely functional, it would be an elevated surface that would conform to any width of person and any given height at any given reclined angle for comfort and ease of use. Form follows intent and context. The varieties afforded by these designs can be driven by money, convenience, reflection of the brand, or in some cases pure artistry. Utilitarian designs offer a purely functional approach. Because of the constraints of the material available and the rules of physics, the aesthetics are naturally affected by the choices made to assemble the final outcome. So really, designers will hit the points that must be met regarding the pure function component of an object, and the rest becomes an opportunity for aesthetic void fill, invention and discovery, and brand impression. The core function of an object never changes, just the intent and the context. Therefore, while following a functional essence of a project is important in fitting objects within a classification, it's the space in the margins that offers the room to expand or contract the final form that makes so many iterations possible. Another interesting dynamic that fits into all of this is hitting the walls of limitation. Take a look at cell phones. While they're certainly continuing to evolve, we're seeing the category plateau in spaces for innovation. So instead of innovating, these devices are adding on additional features such as bifolding screens or recycling the concept of tangible buttons on a device as a means of continuing sales. I jokingly mentioned this recently in a conversation with a friend about how cell phones were going to eventually become a piece of jewelry that would have multiple tiles of contextual data displayed, while hipsters will be holding on to their retro trifold phones in rebellion to the chic new thing.
Send me some of your thoughts. When you're designing an object or a graphic, how much of what you're designing is based on research? How much of it is based on designing from the gut? Do you have a favorite methodology for creating permutations of objects that already exist? How much of what you design is art, and how much of it is design? Let me know. Send me a note on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll post some of the best insights and projects. Thanks so much, and have a great day.